As always, Square Enix are a bloody strange company. They're a very weird company in how they do things. Recently on the channel we talked about PC games, $70. We might have to get used to that, and they're kind of leading the charge on PC.
Yeah, and for $70, you don't even get a product that works all that well.
Yeah, of course. And today we have a good thing, Yoshi-P, and we have a less good thing, which is slicing and dicing up a game and communicating about it in a very strange way.
Yes.
So to cover, of course, Naoki Yoshida, who, the game director of Final Fantasy XIV, very much a beloved figure in the industry, I would say. He had a rather unfortunate announcement to make. It's a pretty major delay to FF16. You know, that game he's also heavily involved with on top of FF14. How does this man actually do all of this? Big question. I wonder, is it demon magic or is it really that much Red Bull and cigarettes? Who knows?
It's
Definitely
that
the latter.
and 4 hours of sleep.
Yep.
That's it.
Madman, but this has been handled. You can tell it's kind of coming from him because it's being handled in the same way that FF14 news is handled. Where, recently we've had detailed explanations about the Endwalker issues and, 3 weeks of free game time?
Yeah.
Which is handing away for a subscription-based game quite a big old chunk of change. So, look, as always here, this is the gold standard in fan communication, and if I was to boil this statement down a bit more quickly for everybody, the TLDR is that COVID seriously impacted their ability to communicate and coordinate with their global staff, which has resulted in serious delays and some cancellation of assets from outsourcing partners. It took up their organizational time and energy to solve these issues throughout 2021, which is something that basically delayed their focus on the usual last push of game development. Yeah. So usually whenever that last push is hyper compressed or a death march that lasts forever, that's when you get your anthems. That's when you get your just shitty AAA rubbish.
Yeah.
So seeing a delay here is a very, very, very good thing indeed. Final Fantasy brand has...
Oh boy.
It's had issues.
Yes.
I mean, FF13, it's tricky. Lightning Returns, by many accounts, is actually pretty fun. It's the one that you like for the combat system.
Yeah.
FF13 had its issues. FF14 obviously completely shat the bed at its beginning. FF15, I think, is not unanimously loved.
No, it is really not.
Could say.
It's really not. It's like between the director Tabata and Yuichi Wada, the president of Square Enix, for that era of everything, their approach to development and leadership of development is largely why everything went to shit in that era, which is, about treating customers right and about doing development kind of wrong in a sense. And that's why I think that people should be kind of heartened by, I guess, the specifics of it being like the last push of development. Because in this, it go through, the things we're going to focus on are going to be, increasing graphic resource quality, refining combat mechanics, fleshing out individual battles, putting finishing touches, and conducting optimization. And it's like from, because obviously Yoshi-P is the producer on this. He's not the director on 16 like he is on 14. So he's not going to have the same fine-tooth comb approach. But if he's producing and they're learning from his style and what worked for 14, then they're going to be developing in the same way that 14 kind of is, which is there is very, very, very tight oversight on the final product and everything that comes out, which is something you definitely want to see when it comes to finishing touches, because it is like the last 10% that makes a game feel really, really, really good when they go and hyper optimize the little bits that need to feel great, get the music time just right with big moments for set pieces, for for big heavy action games and stuff. So
playtesting and iteration. Halo Infinite I think is a pretty damn good example of that.
Yeah.
You can tell, the campaign just plays really good. Yeah.
So, the idea that it's the delays in the organizational end that, you would imagine leadership and management be handling, they haven't just went, devs can just finish the game without oversight. They actually are going, okay, we're going to have to go over all of this. So it's kind of heartening in that sense, and that's why I'm, happy they give the details. Yeah. But there's certainly, there's just so much information here that we get from other companies to be delayed because COVID. Goodbye. That's what you're getting.
Yeah, it actually helps us understand a little bit more, which I like. So things that Yoshi-P touches, tends to go well. Now then, less good. This is the sort of thing we don't want to see go on in the games industry. Right, so pre-order the digital deluxe edition of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin to receive 3 additional missions when they arrive. Trials of the Dragon King, Wonder of the Rift, and Different Future. These missions won't be available separately.
Cool.
Now, you could misread that and think that you need to buy the digital deluxe.
Yep.
When in reality, this could just be a season pass later that contains all of the missions where they cannot be individually purchased, right?
Yep. That's
sneaky.
People are looking at it because that's the way Neo did it as well, which is, Team Ninja, same team. But they just, like, everyone reads on you. It's such a stark comment to make. In a new line, there's your line break. There's a white space. These missions won't be available separately.
Yeah.
And it's just such a matter of fact, like, well, what does that mean? Separately, in context, you're thinking, oh, they won't be available separately to the game because you're talking about the digital deluxe edition. Also, if you go to the store, there's no listing for a season pass. It just says, here's the digital deluxe with all the content. Here's the digital standard without that content. And here's the physical standard that has shit all. So I guess you'll have to buy the digital and might as well get the deluxe here because you're confused, possibly.
Yeah, and when I look at these, I mean, given that so much of the appeal of this game seems to be the rather meta level that it's operating on,
yeah.
If I hear that there's a mission called Different Future,
Damn right.
like that feels, and especially think about some of the, the game material that this is quite obviously based off, that seems like content you would really not want to miss.
Definitely.
Now, obviously, we don't. It could all be shit. We don't know,
of
but
course.
That's rough. So, in a pretty damn stark contrast to how things are going on over in Yoshi-P land, they are locking content behind a $30 extra digital deluxe edition, or are they doing that? Are they only making it seem like that? Because that's a $60 game locking 3 extra missions behind $30, and of course, with that $30, you also are getting some digital goodies.
Yes.
Which obviously are things that take barely any time. It's, the sort of thing where you kind of beef up the bundle in order to be able to charge that a little bit more and maybe make people think that the digital deluxe is a better edition.
Yeah.
Is more worthwhile.
I think the move that the industry took overall from the physical editions having art books and mini soundtracks to the digital soundtracks and digital art books, which, digital art book is literally just here's some pictures.
Here's PDF.
You can go to any site because they're immediately up. They're immediately up anywhere there's concept art or game art, and then say, well, maybe not the same with the mini soundtracks, but they're usually mini soundtracks of a couple tracks, and people just rip all the music and put it on YouTube anyway. So there's like almost no value to you, especially when there's no real way to engage with them nicely. There's no like nice viewer or nice music player for them.
Yeah,
it's usually just it's a thing that Steam sort of has support for, and maybe the PS5 maybe has support for.
Because of course, everybody that gets the digital deluxe edition on a PS5, that of course includes a digital soundtrack, is immediately going to take that digital soundtrack and then put it onto their own Plex server.
Absolutely.
Because that's what everyone's actually going to do.
Yeah.
And they're actually going to get use of those things. 100%. Yes, totally. Yeah, I believe this. Yeah.
As opposed to when they had value, when they had 30 or $10, $20, $30 of value is when they were physical. And even then, I remember, I guess it was sort of in the middle of the PS3 era, whenever we started to move to digital, I remember getting more and more saddened by every physical edition I get. I'm like, it's a mini soundtrack as opposed to soundtrack, or, the art book is like 6 pages instead of like actually feeling like it was crafted. And now we're just in a world where it's digital.
Credit to them, in the older days, the Blizzard ones were pretty good for the price. Got a big chunky art book, and it's not just having the art book, it's not just having the pictures. Like, you can put that somewhere. It's a thing you own. And that just ain't there for the digital. So it kind of looks like they're just kind of dusting up the digital edition, really, because they're just trying to get these 3 missions sold. Yeah. Now, the confusing thing, those 3 missions are included as part of the Season Pass, which is supposed to be available separately at a later date, but there's no detail on any of that, including pricing. Now, there's some historical precedent because of Neo, which has Season Pass DLC that people can use to sort of compare here, but just because it's the same game team doesn't mean it'll go down the exact same
different
way.
Publisher too, so.
And a different publisher. But yeah, the way that it says won't be available separately, I think in the context, it will to a lot of people mean you must get the digital deluxe edition. Yeah. But other people will, of course, then notice, no, doesn't really necessarily mean that. Perhaps what it means is you can't buy each mission separately. Yeah. Therefore, it will be covered in the Season Pass. But if you can't buy the Season Pass now, And then what I really wonder is what happens if the season pass is like $20 or $25. It costs a bit less money, and it turns out this is all just something that's being orchestrated to sell the 3 missions for more, sell the 3 missions for $30.
Yeah.
So I don't think people get really much use out of the other digital deluxe edition things.
It's a thing, if you try to think about it from different sort of consumer or, player perspectives, you get a couple different things to think about, which is, number one, someone who doesn't follow much news and will just see that tweet in isolation and think, oh, that's cool. Oh, I'll buy the digital deluxe. That's them kind of being scammed a little bit if you want to read this unfairly or, reasonably fairly, as opposed to, not just given the benefit of the doubt, if you want to read it honestly.
Think about what their intent is from the messaging, I suppose.
Yeah, and then there's the other thing, which is the fact that it's physical. So right now, there's no way to get the missions and physical that is confirmed and knowable, like on a store listing or anything like that. You need to read into it. So if you want to buy this game physically, which obviously, keep in mind, that means Square Enix will get less money.
Yeah.
Because the store will get a cut, etc., etc. They want to push you towards digital, so they've got 72-hour early access for digital, which is just the game's out 3 days earlier, which obviously works okay for FF14 because that's a code, no physical stuff like that. That's kind of acceptable enough. But for a game that has a physical release like that, you're like, okay, well, because you're given 3 days early for digital because we know you're getting more money, so you're, incentivizing it. Sure, that's okay, but physical people are being scuffed because, like you said about not knowing what the season pass price is, you don't know if physical is a bad deal yet.
Yeah.
Because if the season pass turns out to be $25, $30, then you're looking at going, well, I want the physical, but I also have to make a price conscious decision, and I also have to get the season pass at the same time. So from that like specific consumer perspective, they're kind of just shit out of luck. And it's, as someone who likes physical stuff, that's really quite annoying.
Yeah, it's a big suck. So basically, it's just, this is the sort of thing we don't really want to see go on in the industry. Whenever there is a void of information or there are just funny little statements, usually that's not to your benefit as the consumer, and that certainly is what's going on here. Now, that said, there are just one or two other things. I mean, obviously, Square Enix, augment your pre-order. Remember that from Deus Ex Mankind Divided? So it is that publisher. Then also one decently nice thing, they're at least charging $60 for this, and the PS4 and 5 editions are the same price. Yeah. So that's not continuing the other things that we've seen go on, including from Square Enix themselves. And also, this is an Epic exclusive on PC, which, again, a lot of people are not going to be particularly thrilled about, to say the very least.
Yep.
So basically, there you go. It's been an interesting time. FF14 news has been great. FF16, we're happy enough with the update, all things considered. But the FF7 remake integrate port was really expensive and rubbish.
And Epic exclusive.
And now we are seeing this fun jiggery pokery with slicing missions, which I hate it whenever games just take content away to wrap up in an extra purchase like this at launch. That is so scummy. This is just not what we want, so I don't like seeing them do it. They're so close to having only good wins.
Yeah.
Right? Why do they have to do this?
That's the thing I find interesting. It's like, that's why I think leadership is so important. Because you look at Yoshi-P, he's on the board of directors, he's in the Final Fantasy Council of people controlling that brand. Whenever he's in charge of a product or product, he will just do the thing that feels better to consumers, basically all of the time. Not to say he doesn't make mistakes. Obviously, FF16's been delayed by half a year. That's awful. He did have to break his promise of giving news in 2021. But it's just like it's the consumer-friendly part of it, where he will defy tradition, or not. Well, I guess not deficient. He will defy modern acceptable things to do what's kind of more old school and more right. But then you see every other part of Square Enix has been, we're a modern company, so we're going to do these things. Like, I can't believe it. I didn't think that when I saw, maybe 2009, 2010, whenever people used like the analogy of a burger. And instead of, the DLC wasn't extra toppings, it was the salad was taken off, or one of the patties was taken off and being sold back to you. I didn't think that would still be relevant over 10 years later.
There you go, it is. Yeah, so
it's bad stuff.
That's grim.